Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the GBA Blockchain Conference 21 and the panel discussion this morning on unlocking retail growth, card to crypto. Today, we're going to be talking about mass adoption and the barriers to getting there and the firms that are building the products to bridge the gap. Joining me on this complex topic are thought leaders and industry veterans from some of the biggest firms in the space. From Worldpay from FIS, we have Cabreros and Micah Kershner, both global payment executives. From Kraken Exchange, we have Reed Holmes, the head of banking and payments for Americas. And from Celsius Network, we have Harumi Urata-Thompson, the CIO. So thanks. Welcome, everyone. My name's Dwight van Diem. I'm from BCW Group. We're a boutique strategy consulting firm that works with corporates and Fortune 500s. And I'm here with these distinguished people to talk about this concept, or this thing of unlocking retail growth. And so I guess before we jump into it, I'd like to you all to just briefly introduce yourselves and talk about how you touch the DLT industry, and maybe in a little snap tagline, what you guys are doing to work on to bridge that gap with crypto and mass adoption. Open it up to anyone to start. Maybe Harumi, you'd like to go first.
Thank you, Dwight. Hello, everyone. I am very excited to be here. My name is Harumi Urata-Thompson. As introduced, I am the Chief Investment Officer for Celsius Network. And I really got here. My life started with the traditional finance, but started with the derivatives trading. And then we all joke that whoever was in the derivatives field inevitably all end up in the crypto, because this is the ultimate derivatives field that we have right now. So that's how I got to crypto blockchain, and we start talking about what we do with regards to mass adoption as we go introduce ourselves, or Dwight, or we want to jump into that topic after?
No, that's fine. Okay. Just a quick overview, and then maybe Reed can jump in next.
Okay, so just I guess the one thing Celsius really is all about taking working with the retail individuals like you and yourself, myself, ourselves. So that's really kind of like, we open up a wallet, and then we educate the individuals what it means to have the cryptocurrency, and what kind of financial independence one can have. So that's really kind of basis of how we work on the retail mass adoption.
Thanks. Reed?
Thanks for me. Yeah, Reed Holmes, head of banking and payments for Kraken. Kraken is one of the largest digital asset exchanges in the world. We have, I think we've traded over, I think it's about 775 billion traded since its founding in 2011. Over 4 million customers, over 50 cryptocurrencies are traded. I started with the company about 4 years ago, and seen a lot change in that period of time. Having this actual type of conversation here, being on a panel with you folks is a big change, and it's been a while since we got to this point to talk to these type of people in the payments business. I came actually from the online gambling space. That's where I sort of discovered crypto and saw the use case for that particular business. And then as I started to go down that rabbit hole, I saw that it had so much more potential, and that very much a revolutionary technology. So I believe in it very strongly, and I'm happy to be here to be able to share with you guys. So thanks.
Micah, Jay.
Hi, Micah Kershner here from Worldpay from FIS. Been with the organization now working on 8 years. Worldpay is the largest credit card acquirer in the world, which means we enable businesses to accept credit cards as payment. And what we're doing in the DLT space is we are supporting crypto exchanges and ecosystem players to enable them to accept card as payment, to make a retail purchase for retail users to go in and quickly, easily from their couch purchase, Bitcoin or ETH or whatever coin with a credit card, and to do it without too much work. So it's a click to buy model. and reducing the friction in that payment transaction. And we see that as a necessary step to mass adoption globally for crypto.
Yeah, and last and certainly least, my name's Cabreros. I am based in San Francisco. Been at Worldpay for a little over 8 years. Been in the crypto space that whole entire time, helping our global exchanges not only grow their own products, across the world and market, but also to bring that mass adoption that Micah was talking about earlier. Been in the finance space 20 years plus overall, and like Harumi was in the derivative space as well. So very natural progression into crypto, I would agree. So happy to be a part of this panel and discuss mass adoption.
Great, thanks everyone. Okay, so I guess sort of before we jump into the actual mass adoption question, I do want to, obviously we're in the middle of a bull market, want to sort of touch on that a little bit briefly. So I guess leading into that, Che, 2 years ago, we were here, well, I was here in Hong Kong, and you guys were over here when we could actually do these conferences in person. And back then we had a similar topic around card to crypto, but obviously we were in the middle of a bear market, whereas now we're in the throes of a bull market. What would you say is probably the biggest success story and challenge for you guys as a firm as you've moved through this regime shift from bear to bull?
Sure. So, and you're right, we have been working together for a couple years now on this. And like you saw during the bear market, what you saw, right, are a lot of companies and exchanges investing that capital in preparation for a bull run like we saw. And, the last one that we had that was significant was back in 2017. And I think for Worldpay from FIS, we learned a lot from that last bull market, because what we saw as adoption started to grow in this space, especially in the retail sector, because that's where cards tend to dominate in this space as a fiat on-ramp channel for exchanges, is through the retail purchases, a couple $100 worth of Bitcoin. So that, I think the industry wasn't prepared for this adoption to go from, literally 50, 100,000, dollars worth of volume a month to, well over $1 billion a month when turnover started to really pick up and this adoption grew. So between that time of 2017 into 2021, I think what Worldpay from FIS has done is we've not only learned a lot of lessons from, a scalability factor and things, but we also saw a lot of the problems that arose from such high volume really quickly, right? We saw that there was a lot of issues with, fraud and chargebacks, and a lot of exchanges really struggling to put a wrapper around this new set of business, because it was a lot different managing kind of this regulated fiat world, right, than it was in the crypto space. So working with our exchanges, helping them grow based on the lessons we learned from the last couple bull bear market cycles, I think has helped us take these companies to where they are now, because we have a lot of experience seeing those highs and lows.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess, Reed, like similar question to you and over at Kraken, like what have you seen as being that biggest success story or challenges as you've moved from bear to bull?
Yeah, some similar ideas there. One of the big things that really helped us is that we invested in infrastructure, our technical infrastructure. So as you guys may recall from back in 2017, 2018, we had that first really big pump up. And as a result of that, it actually caused, we weren't ready for it, as Sir Che alluded to. We weren't really ready for that. And as a result, we had some problems with our software and our infrastructure to be able to accommodate everybody. So we invested a lot in that. And this last bull run, as we're in right now, we've been very stable through it. So that's been a huge success for us. And it's made our customers quite happy too. We had some issues with our customers before, a lot of complaints, but now we're getting some good feedback. Cards have been a big part of it too, getting into that retail. We're really sort of adopting more of the retail payment methods, bringing more of those folks in. And that's really been successful for us. I always thought it would. Now Che always said, hey, it could be really successful. And it has been. It's really proven to be. Some of the challenges have been really, even though we've got our infrastructure kind of in place, one of the big challenges for us has been just getting people boarded fast enough. And that's a customer support thing where we have to really kind of work to get everybody their KYC in and get everything, get them verified. That takes a fair amount of resources, and we're trying to find ways to become more efficient in that area. Like for instance, in one day, we had about 250,000 signups in one day. So you can imagine that basically was one day where we actually had to kind of shut down our verification for a little bit as we kind of reloaded and try to accommodate all those folks. And that kind of came around that whole GameStop thing, as you guys recall. That was sort of an effect from that. So it was an interesting day that day.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, so then like when it sort of comes to that sort of massive amount of onboarding of new customers, I mean, Harumi and Che mentioned there's obviously a lot of derivatives traders that are coming into this space. I assume that the typical profile of these mass amounts of people aren't all derivatives traders. Like, what type of customers are they in bulk?
Yeah, well, like I said, sorry, go ahead, Harumi.
So no, I mean, it's certainly not. And especially with our platform, a lot of customers do trust us with their life savings kind of money. We are kind of alternative to a bank, right? So I mean, everybody here has a different business model, but we are like a kind of alternative bank, so to speak, although we would never use the word like bank to explain ourselves. So people come and people understand that they can get just a little bit more return on their money than if they just keep it in the bank account. I mean, wherever you are in the world, how many of you can actually say, oh, yeah, we make more than 1% annualized on our money if we keep the money just in the bank account, right? I mean, that's like even like a tenth or hundredth of that. Whereas if you happen to have Bitcoin or Ether, and then we support 46 different coins in our platform today, you can get anything between, let's say, sort of like a middle single digit to sort of like a low teen number, depending on what coin you provide us and depending on what kind of class you come in. So that's the kind of money that we are dealing with, and that's the kind of customers that we are dealing with. So we certainly do have a kind of like different mentality that we have to bring to the business world in order to kind of continue talking about mass adoption, what we need to be mindful of. That's the kind of environment that we are in. But the fact that when I just joined a year and months ago, I joined in February last year, our asset size was $500 million, give or take. And now we're talking about $10 billion. So that really kind of shows, it may not be necessarily that, the whole world adopted it. So maybe a little bit more people adopted it. And then each person who adopted the concept feeling a little bit more comfortable having a little bit more of this asset. I think that's how kind of the progression is going.
And then when it comes to like the current situation now with the bull market, do you find that like your users are sort of actually leaning into the market and depositing more? Or do you see like an actual reduction in deposits because they actually want to go and leverage up and actually actively trade it somewhere else?
Right. So thank you very much for that question, Dwight. Some people might ask if I've staged this question, but no, actually, even in the like an occasional sort of downturn, something like that we have experienced in the last couple of days, right? I mean, even the momentous one, we actually have had net plus every week, as far as like many months by now. So whether we are going up or down, it seems like the funds, and we're very fortunate, we're very thankful. The more funds tend to come in than going out. Obviously, the bull market itself is very good for the sentiment. So I'm sure it makes it a little bit easier for the people to consider this as an alternative asset. But I think also like, what is happening is we really going back to like, you know, what kind of expectations you can have for the assets that you have. You know, I mean, this is getting the rewards on your coin is something that you can see on a weekly basis in your wallet. The share returns, like, you know, the market goes up, but it's not like a dividend comes into your pocket or bank account every day, right? And if you have the money in the bank account, that's certainly like, you know, 0.1% annualized. So I think it's like, you know, where a lot of people start thinking that I'm not necessarily, you know, I'm not necessarily the kind of investor who monitors the market every day and then adjust my position on the weekly basis, monthly basis, and a quarterly basis. But if we just have a little bit more of this thing called cryptocurrency and then keep it in the wallet, the kind of returns that we can get based off of that, we can just kind of pay for the grocery already. I think that's where I think of the people who are already feeling comfortable with digital assets are going. And then I think that's what's happening. So even in a down market, they might buy a little bit more and then put it into the wallet. And then in the up market, obviously, like, and that gives them a lot more returns. So I think that's the kind of trend that we are seeing now.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I guess just sort of coming back to what Reed was talking about as well, Mike, I wanted to ask you a question. Obviously, Reed had mentioned that like a lot of the problems that they have are with sort of card and client onboarding for funds and stuff like that. And obviously, being a merchant, as you said before, one of the biggest in the world, you know, what is it that Worldpay does to support its merchants during these bull market times? Because I assume that it's like probably good to have been using sort of like enterprise grade plumbing rather than something smaller.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we have a global footprint, right? The organization, and so we support our crypto customers. Generally there's a decentralized structure to the global crypto merchants, right? They might have their devs might be over in APAC or in Eastern Europe, and relationship management, in the US or Europe or somewhere in APAC. And so we'll customize that support to their needs. So perhaps we'll have local support aligned with their where their devs are, and relationship management aligned where that needs to be as well. And so we're just going to have, during these high volume times of the bull markets, we're going to have more touch points with them and ensure that they're hitting the approval rates in the markets that they're working at or working in, finely tuned. And if there are any drops or anything like that, we are going to be quick to respond and make ourselves available to make any adjustments in the checkout flow and things like that. So it's, enterprise level support, right? And in terms of plumbing, yes, we're the infrastructure, right? We can't go down. And it's very important, I guess, when selecting your payments provider, that you're finding somebody that is built, with hot redundancy, that the system never goes down, and it can support the high volume times of crypto. For Worldpay is the biggest acquirer in the world. Even the highest volume times for crypto trading isn't really a blip on our radar in terms of our throughput, because the high volume days for us as a global acquirer with a broad book of business that works in retail and in travel and to Reed's point on online gambling and things, those days are it's singles day in China, where it's just many billions of dollars worth of transactions going through in a single day, or Black Friday in the US. So we're built specifically for these high volume times, and the bull market doesn't hit us, and we're excited about the activity, certainly.
Let's hope it keeps going for a while longer. I guess then, I guess a question following up for that for Reed. You'd mentioned before that Kraken's one of the oldest exchanges. You've been in the market for a long time. You obviously moved through various different strategies through those market swings. What have been some of the enhancements that you guys have done that's worked well for your business? And then I'd also, separate question, be interested to know from a new accounts perspective, like how many of these are you seeing now that are actually like loading with debit card as opposed to in the past would have been using some other method to try and convert fiat to crypto?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned, some of those enhancements, obviously the technical components, that's been a huge thing for us. Also customer support, client engagement, that's sort of part of our business is really, really important. Especially as you have new people coming in who are unfamiliar with it. There's still a bit of a learning curve there, and we're starting to see not only the sort of the tech savvy younger demographic, millennials are seeing maybe an older demographic coming in, and there's a little bit more hand holding that's required there at times, especially around things like security. So that's sort of there's some of the enhancements there is more of a human resources enhancement and really helping these people with support center articles, with videos, all those sort of things that really help them, guide them through the process to getting boarded. And then a lot of attention to user experience, and we're investing a lot in user experience, especially around our mobile app. I mean, that we're putting a lot in the mobile app because that goes along with our initiative to get more of the retail client. We really see an opportunity there. We've done very well with more institutional type clients and some of the traditional traders and some of the traditional folks from the crypto space. Now we're getting more of that retail coming in. They want to use cards, they want easy ways to get on, they want to be able to, they don't want to run into a lot of friction. And so that's where investing a lot and heavily into our mobile experience or user experience. It's really important as we move forward. Adding different cryptocurrencies, we're always getting asked for these sort of enhancements. What sort of cryptos are you guys going to bring on? We're always getting asked for new ones. We have new trading functionality, margin trading. Some of these kind of going back to those traditional trader folks and some of the institutional folks. They want to do all kinds of funky things around trading, whether it's like I said, margin trading, different futures trading is another big. We acquired a company in the UK for futures, which is proving to be very popular as well. But yeah, I mean, again, I do like to tip my hat to sort of cards and some of the things we're planning on doing more on the sort of easy local payment method front too. We're just having those on ramps and off ramps, mostly on ramps because that's mostly people when they come in. Most of them don't leave; they actually stay in. And I often tell people, some people ask me, "Well, when are you going to cash out?" So, well, why would I cash out? Where am I going to go into cash? Well, I'm not going to go into cash. But and that's, I think, sometimes maybe a bit of a misconception. We start to see our balances really increase on the fiat side because people come in and they stay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we don't generally look at it in like three buckets, like, yeah, definitely like onboarding and offboarding, but then there's that like utilization in the middle of it, whether it's trading or anything else. And I guess, Harumi, this is probably a good point for you to maybe step in on your side, because obviously that utilization bit in the middle of it, you could trade or you could sort of deposit an interest. And so, how has that evolved over the time? Because obviously peer-to-peer lending has been around since the early days, but it wasn't until recent years that it really took off. And sort of, I guess, why do you think this is? And I guess, how was Celsius part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, although crypto lending itself is still, many companies are beginning to adopt, you're absolutely right, Dwight, but the crypto lending concept itself is still a 2-3 year old concept in all practical purposes. But something similar in the industry already existed for a number of years, and it's called security SEC lending, right? So, taking some collateral and then lending money against it, something that always existed. And it's something that we kind of natural as part of allowing the customers to start bearing some kind of return on their money. It was something that we naturally adopted right at the beginning. And it's still the one of the safest and most profitable kind of like deals that you can do out there on the street. Now, what are we seeing? So as you said, Dwight, there are a lot of competitors coming into the field. We still do think that we do a pretty good job with crypto lending itself, but also when you're talking about not 500 million, but 10 billion kind of like a base to start and then growing, you need to start thinking, can we actually do all the money making just by doing the crypto lending? So, we clearly need to look into diversifying our business portfolio. And then that's where a lot of new sort of emerging ways of making money with cryptocurrency is actually coming into our field now. As I said, safety, because of the kind of customers that we have. Our customers are not rich accredited investors. Our customers are regular people like myself. So the keeping the principal safe is something very, very important to us. So even when we start diverging away from just being a crypto lending to doing some other things, considering other investment assets or anything like that, we need to make sure that we can, at the end of the day, hold up our heads high and say, even if this is my own money, I would do it. And then it's, I can believe in safety. I can believe in security. This is where we are going. So it's something that we have to kind of make sure that we continue doing regardless of where we are going. But yeah, definitely there are probably not enough people to borrow $10 billion funds out there just like that today. So we really need to be thinking about this aspect of cryptocurrency business, regardless of where you are. For us, it's crypto lending versus some other ways to make money. And then, for some of you, it might be infrastructure, it might be just a pure education, but we all need to be thinking about these things.
Yeah, and I guess as well, into your point about the interest earned, as far as macro trends are going around the world, whether it was the Fed the other week announcing close to zero rates to 2023, or other governments that we're going to continue to see depressed rates at the high street bank. And so, I guess this macro driver trends must excite you guys, that you see a solid path for your business model into the future. Okay, I guess I had one other question for Che, actually, sort of linking back over onto what Reed was talking about with card. I mean, Che, you, some people probably don't know, but you were actually instrumental in putting the first card onto a US exchange over 6 years ago now, I guess. Could you talk through from your side what you see the effects of being in the maturation for cards in the market, and where it's evolving to? I start to see that we've got sort of these crypto rail aggregators starting to appear, as well as the independent merchants.
Yeah, sure. So, God, I think it's been closer to 8 years since we first put a card through, which is pretty interesting, because if you go back to when we first started looking at the space and we signed our first crypto exchange back in 2013, MasterCard and Visa had no sort of rules or regulations or thought about what to do with cryptocurrency, right? And at the time, we're just talking Bitcoin for the most part, and the exchanges are looking for, they were seeing this vision of adoption going through the retail space, and finding easy fiat on-ramp channels, like Reed was mentioning, quick, easy ways to get into this space, right? And it took a long time. It took a couple years for us to get the card brands comfortable with what we were trying to do. And I think that's also goes to the power of a company the size of Worldpay from FIS, right? Because with a company that has 65,000 people and a lot of resources, we have a lot of executive level relationships, right, with the card brands, with card issuers, etc. So pioneering in that space is something we had been doing for a couple of years. And I think learning from those bumps and bruises is what's allowed us to sort of bring this adoption to where it's at now. Because as we bring on new clients like Kraken, like Reed and their team, we've seen a lot of the issues and potential problems that popped up in the past, right? And so now how to navigate around these things. You know where the pitfalls are and the potential pitfalls. And because of that, we're able to consult our clients a lot better in terms of where to go and how present to their customers, right? I think where you're seeing this space now is, okay, now you have a lot of adoption. You have a lot of customers coming on via fiat on-ramps with credit and debit cards. But now the question is what do you do now? What's the next steps, which was your point here? And that's, okay, now that you have adoption like this, what are some of the other needs out there? You know, you have exchanges that are looking to do things like card issuance, right? Giving their customers an actual Visa or MasterCard that they can load funds onto and that they can spend and that they can have their crypto on, et cetera, right? You have other capital markets products that are trying to come into this space, you know, that are trying to build accounting systems and what have you. And then to your point, you have, you know, you have a lot of different gateways coming on board, trying to integrate to do different connections into acquirers and to exchanges to facilitate this on-ramp process, right? I think what's important and what we need to focus on sort of going into the future here is this, you know, again, the fiat space is very regulated, right? And if you look at the rule books, you know, it's the size of 2 dictionaries stacked on top of each other. And the rules are different in every country and market, right? Jurisdictions, they have their own rules and regulations. And I think what's happening is exchanges may come on and they see all this volume, and that's great, but they don't realize that if they're not managing within the rules and regulations of each jurisdiction, they can face a lot of problems, a lot of punishments and fines and fees that come from the card brands for not doing what they should be doing. So needing that advice, needing to understand that you're now in a new realm where the volume you're doing is significant and it's also being watched very carefully. And so to be able to navigate through those spaces, you want to have a global partner that helps to do that, as well as a partner that's big enough to continue to develop products with you that serve the market versus just sort of adopting to what, you know, providers have out there, right? And I think that's the final piece is with a company our size, we have that resource and ability to develop products with our customers that actually are tailored to bring that adoption versus trying to make what we have work.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess for the poor retail person that's new to the space, it is definitely quite a minefield to try and navigate and work out where they should go and what they should do. I mean, I would actually like to touch on the governance that you actually mentioned as well, because I definitely feel that that's part of a blocker of some form to mass adoption, because obviously in some markets we don't have, or the retail customer doesn't have the assurity that they want. Or, you know, there's a communication issue in the media around crypto and stuff like that. I mean, Reid, what do you see from Kraken's side when it does come to sort of compliance and regulation, and sort of what additional challenges does all this bring to you when you need to chase points, need to stay across licensing and regulation across multiple different markets?
Yeah, that's a big one. And I like to tell people that the fastest growing department at Kraken is the compliance department, sometimes known as the Department of No. Just kidding. But no, it's definitely we have a lot of folks coming in for compliance because there's a lot of, as Che alluded to, we're a global exchange, so we're in all kinds of different jurisdictions. We want to do all the right things. We're in for the long haul, so we are we're in contact with regulators. We're doing the right things in terms of trying to get licensing, regulation. When we're getting border with different partners like Worldpay or different banking partners, there's a lot involved in that, as you can imagine, the boarding process and a lot of compliance related material. We have to have conversations. We have to maybe perhaps provide legal opinions, these sort of things. So it's a challenge for us internally, and it's a complex, not necessarily a problem, but it's complex. But I guess the problem might be for folks that are kind of coming into the space, if there are new entrants in the space, unfortunately, the barriers are getting a little bit higher, right? It's harder to get in now than it was a few years ago, which I don't like to see that myself. It obviously the competition is maybe not as much, competition coming up to a certain degree, although it's coming from maybe more the traditional space. But it's that's difficult. That's a difficult part of it for new people coming in, new merchants, that sort of thing. I think communications you touched on too, with how do we get that for those new users, and how do they get comfort in knowing what we're doing, that we're doing all the right things. And that's also a challenge. But again, it kind of comes to, for us, utilizing some of the tools like social media. Social media being a big tool where we have a whole team of people that are just dedicated to responding to inquiries, to talking to customers, to talking to the public through social media, whether it might be Twitter or Reddit. Like our CEO is very active on social media, and it's very important to him, and he recognizes that's a really important way to get the word out and to get the message out that, hey, Kraken is a place that you can trust. We're going to do all the right things. We're going to avoid some of the pitfalls of some of the other exchanges that we've heard of in the past that have had issues and kind of exploded. So that's a big part of it there, getting out blogs, getting out articles in our support center, making sure that we speak with media, getting videos and YouTube videos and that sort of, participating in things like podcasts, podcasts being a really big growth area, and blogs and that sort of thing. Right?
Yeah, quite the full team to do it. And I guess Harumi, I'm assuming the same, similar on your side, obviously different set of regulations that you're dealing with. And I assume, like, when you're talking to a lot of regulators, they probably don't even know terms like DeFi and stuff like that. So there's a lot of education on both sides.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So unlike the sort of credit card or exchange, which I think the regulators look, sort of like really look at these businesses with the obvious kind of like, we know what the exchange business should look like or what the credit card business should look like. We are slightly in a different space, but it doesn't mean that, we don't actively actually like, go for as compliant as possible. So obviously from the beginning, and then, we are always dealing with, you already mentioned, sort of like different countries, different jurisdictions. I mean, in the US, we have like different states that would have different sets of regulations too. So just to make sure, from the beginning, we were always compliant with FinCEN, and we are a UK company. So we are actively working with FCA. We already have the temporary registration with them, and then we are trying to finalize to become the fully compliant, fully compliant regulated entity in the UK too, and then looking into different licenses here and there. So we are really proactively trying to become the regulated entity. And then yes, it does bring up the hurdle for sort of competitors and things like that. But with or without even talking about the competition, to me, because like I'm having the position that I do, I'd rather have certain set of regulations that I know I am compliant with than kind of constantly guessing, am I going out of the boundary? Am I pushing the envelope too far? To a certain extent, and having the regulations to look to, and then kind of know that I am compliant or I'm not compliant yet, so we need to be compliant. That actually sometimes makes things a little bit easier, although upfront, the sort of like a lot of work needs to be done. So I think, being regulated is really kind of like, both blessing and hard work in a way to me. And that's sort of like where I stand. So we are always trying to ahead of the curve. And I think, so far in our, so far we have been doing all right. And if somebody else is going to start throwing the curveball, then we are ready.
Yeah, I assume that like having that that assurity from the government side as well is important. I mean, just quickly, Micah, I mean, maybe you want to touch on it from a Worldpay side, because obviously being global, there's the FATF regulation that's come out that is, I assume, giving you guys better clarity in some of the different markets where you have merchants. And sort of maybe you can talk briefly to sort of how you guys are looking at the FATF regulations. Are you on mute? Yeah.
I'm usually the guy that's not on mute. So, the FATF regulations, represents a challenge certainly to, for regulatory compliance groups, in our onboarding, because, they're the rules are coming into force globally at different points in time, right? And so they need to stay abreast of when exactly that's happening and where. That's a challenge, but on the positive side of it is, again, the regulatory compliance groups that are making their onboarding decisions, they don't like gray areas, right? And when there's doubt on anything, it's more likely to result in a no or a decline. So clarity here for us means that they're able to make a strong decision and more likely get a yes. So I think for us, it's going to result in more deals getting approved because of that clarity. And we are, exploring tools and solutions out there from companies that have created products around the FATF regulation, travel rules specifically. So we're looking for good things to come from that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the 40-minute mark, which was the time we had allotted. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining the panel. I think the conversation was great. We touched on a bunch of different things. I personally would like to see greater adoption throughout the year. I think with the price of Bitcoin, we are seeing that. But I guess quick 15, 30 seconds from each of you, if there is anything you want to say around how you think the rest of the year is going to go, that would be great. And then we can finish it up. Harumi, would you go first?
Sorry about that. Yeah. All right. No, thank you for letting me a part of this panel. This was a really insightful things, and I really learned a lot from all of you. I think it's really all about mass adoption, and for that, I think education and outreach will become important. So I love being a part of this kind of panel. Thank you.
Awesome. Reid?
Yeah, no, thank you. I want to just echo that. Yeah, thank you very much for having us on and having me on representing Kraken. I think, we were talking about it earlier just before we started about the NFTs. I see that as continuing to be an exciting, interesting development in the crypto space. Maybe it's the flavor of the year, but I think it's pretty cool. As someone who, as we talked about, I collected hockey cards as a kid, so I get that. I understand the appeal and the interest to that. I know there's a lot of people kind of looking down on it, but I think it's a cool part of blockchain, and it's really showing some of the potential of what it can do. Right. So
yeah. I
thanks,
agree.
guys.
And then Micah, probably going to talk to you.
Listen, I want to see BTC hit 6 figures. I think it's happening this year. Chips are down. Make it happen.
Yes. Okay. Any final thoughts?
No. Thank you for having us. Again, we're excited to be, pioneers in this space and really trying to get that adoption. I think that over the next couple years, that the more that these institutions are coming in and corporations and governments starting to see things and put regulation around, we're going to see this growth just continue to go up. And so, being prepared for that and not only just having products and services, but also the right solutions and consultative type services, I think are going to be key. So that's what we're looking forward to in the future here as this adoption grows.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time, and I hope everyone watching enjoyed it. Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.